Hello, hello. We're gonna start now with our last two sessions for tonight of our first day of DLD 2009. I would like to call on stage Chris Weeks.
Thank you, Marcel.
Hello, Chris.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
And, while the people are getting seated, coming back from the coffee break, and I see there are not many seats still left. They would like to introduce you. And
okay, thank you.
Chris is representing one of our partners, one of our DLD 2009 global partners, Deutsche Post. We're very happy that Deutsche Post became a partner. And the last session of DLD would like to reflect and talk about something, how all this business works is connected to society, to engagement, to philanthropy, and what can business do to change the world, not only by creating jobs, but also by engagement. And that's why we are very happy now about the presentation, Chris, you give.
Thank you very much.
And maybe you'd like to say a few words about yourself.
Thank you very much. My name's Chris Weeks. I work for DHL Deutsche Post, and I'm one of the people that Herman Ude referred to in his earlier presentation here today. I'm one of the 500,000 in DHL Deutsche Post who spent 25 years with the company doing all sorts of jobs, mostly in operations and sales functions. And I had an opportunity about, you can take that one away. I had an opportunity about 5 years ago to get involved in humanitarian affairs. And I'd chosen the title Competitive Compassion to really describe what I think has happened in the last 5 years to the world of humanitarian aid from a business, a corporate perspective. And to tell you where I got the title from, I was in Sri Lanka after the tsunami, and there was a CNN reporter who approached me at the door of the warehouse that I was looking after. And he said, come over here a minute, come over here, I want to talk to you. And I was, okay, fair enough, what's happening? And he said, I can't believe it. He said, there are planes lined up out on the runway trying to get in here to give humanitarian aid to these people in Sri Lanka. And he said, what's it all about? And I said, well, look, there are nations giving, there are groups giving, and there are now corporations giving help to the people of Sri Lanka after this dreadful event. And I think for the first time, we saw corporations helping out after a serious natural disaster. And he described on air, he said, look, and showed the planes outside, and then he described this word. He said, there's competitive compassion out there. He said, not only are nations lining up to donate, to help these people, but corporations are doing it as well. And they're almost competing to give as much as they can to show largesse, maybe to their shareholders, maybe to their employees, but it was felt that it was the right thing to do. Now, the company I work for had been doing this for a few years before this in Gujarat, first of all, and in Bam in Iran. And I always show this slide because it encapsulates the reason I got involved with delivering humanitarian aid. This was a photograph taken in Bam in Iran exactly 1 year before the tsunami. And it shows on the airport there this aircraft being unloaded, and they've got trucks already on the airport. That's always a very bad sign. And I'll tell you why, because truck drivers of stone quarries are not very skilled when it comes to driving around aircraft. Another thing that went wrong was there was freight all over the airfield, and that's not a very good thing to run over if you're coming into land. The last thing on here, you've got freight loose-loaded into the back of this truck. And when this aircraft turned round and opened its engines up, all this freight was blown straight off the back of the truck and created a complete mess down the side of the airport. Now, this eventually closed the airport in Iran, and no more aid could get through. So when I saw this photograph and had an opportunity to get involved, I got some people together and thought, what are we going to do? What can we do as a corporation to help out in this situation? And what we decided to do was to get a bunch of volunteers together from the company. I don't know if many people here are from the UK, but it's a bit like the lifeboat system in the UK, where you have employee volunteers who put their hands up and say, I want to help when something happens. And we found some volunteers around the world, not just DHL actually, it was competitors as well. And we said, will you be prepared to come and help with the logistics to stop this kind of thing happening the next time a disaster happens? And about 80 or 90 people in Dubai from 5 different companies, competitors actually, got together and said, we'll help. It was Emirates Airlines and ourselves and TNT and a few others. And we built up this little group of people, 80 people, as a disaster response team to help out with air freight when emergency happens, because we didn't want this situation to happen again the next time, and we wanted to do something from our core competence that would help the people to get as much aid as possible. Now, if you don't have your logistics sorted out, and by the way, I make no apology, this is the low-tech spot of the day. You won't get much more low-tech than logistics at DLD, I'm afraid. But the reality is, this is what happens if you don't have people on hand to sort out the freight when it arrives. And it's a complete waste of time and money, and it's not going to help anybody in a state like that. Now, fast-forwarding a bit, because I've only got 15 minutes today, since those 5 years, DHL Deutsche Post has allowed me to set up 3 teams around the world. And we've now got just about 200 volunteers actually in Panama, in Dubai, and in Singapore, ready to go out in case there's another disaster. And we've done a few in our time since the incident in Sri Lanka, since the tsunami there. And particularly, this one in Islamabad was following the earthquake in Kashmir. I don't know whether you remember that one, but it was about 3 years ago. There were 70,000 people killed. And this was the freight coming in from corporations, again, church groups and nations. And by a rough estimate, I reckon about 30 to 40% more freight came in to Pakistan than came in to tsunami. And it was partly because corporations were being competitive about the freight that the donations that they were making. The freight doesn't always come in nice square boxes. Sometimes you get tents coming in like this from the back of an Aleutian that needs to be sorted out. And if there isn't anybody to sort it out, do you know what happens to this? They just drop it on the ground and they leave. And then nobody else can come in. So that's our job, to sort out that freight so that it gets into nice, neat rows like this in the warehouse, and can then be of use to the people that need it. There's also an element here of keeping some of the bad freight out of the way so that you can get the good freight through to the people that need it. Now, you get all sorts of transport that's lined up, not very modern here. These trucks are about 60 years old, but quite all right for transporting up through to the mountains in Pakistan. And some of the various sort of types of transport that I've been involved with here in the USA and Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and most recently last year in Myanmar, where we were delivering freight down into the delta of after Cyclone Nargis. Now, some people give strange things, but buckets are actually quite useful. But they're not much good when they're just dumped on the side of the airport. And that's another example of the sort of thing that can happen. Blankets, again, very useful, donated by a private corporation, I think from China, arrived in Islamabad. And then you get some ugly freight that comes in like that, which is half ruined and needs to be sorted out before we can do anything with it. This was in Peru, where we went after an earthquake down there about 2 or 3 years ago. Same deal, except it hardly got noticed in Europe. Something to do with the media, I think, being media in Europe, not really focusing on South America too much. But again, 30,000 people killed in that one. Now, sometimes we don't even have the luxury of a forklift. And in Burma, or Myanmar, I should say, sorry, that's a BBC-ism, they substitute a forklift by Air Force cadets to just manhandle everything off the aircraft. Now, that's a little bit about what I do with DHL Deutsche Post and the team that I'm allowed to manage and to develop. And I actually want to take this opportunity to thank a colleague of mine here, Monica Wolf-Mattis, who helped me to do this in the end of my career here. Now, I'm going to say thank you on that stage. Thank you very much. And I'm going to get really low-tech now, and I'm going to show you something else that we've done on our travels. Now, this is about as low-tech as you can get, all right? It's a DHL shipping bag, and this has probably been around the world more times than the 6 people who were sitting here. Now, we use it for shipping our documents around the world, but after a while, it gets towards the end of its useful life. And in Pakistan, this American US Marine sergeant came up to me and said, "We've got a problem." He said, "We've got all this aid here. We've got people up in the mountains of Kashmir here. We can't land our helicopters to deliver the aid to them." He said, "What can you do?" So we started out with cardboard boxes, and we put aid in the boxes. And they went away and came back later and said, no, it's not going to work. He said, "You throw these things out, and they just explode, and everything's wasted." He said, "What else can you come up with?" So we had a few of these lying around. And what we did was we put blankets in the bottom. We put a mattress around the outside. We put food in the middle in those buckets, and anything else we could find, clothes, to make up a family pack. So this would last a family for about 10 days and get them started again. And the guys from the US Marine Sergeant came around, and he looked at a few of these and took them away. And he came back, and he said that night, he said, "Hey, those things were brilliant." He said, "When you drop them out, if you leave the top open so the air can get out, they just bounce. And they come and pick them up from the mountainsides." And there's another few things about this bag that's, all right, very low tech, but the color was very important. When you're chucking it out into the middle of an arid kind of environment, you want something that stands out. They're also extremely strong. It's woven polypropylene, and it's tough as old boots, which helps. The other thing, and I'll show you just quickly, because I'm now running out of time. Oh, I've been closed off here. Can you put me back up on here, please? Well, never mind. Out of time. But when they land on the ground, they bounce. And when they land in the water, which we did recently in... I'll just flip through here because I'm out of time. That's the sergeant that started it all off, and those are some of those bags there. That's loading the helicopters up with the bags. We did about 6,000 of these in 10 days, by the way. And that was the photograph that was in the Wall Street Journal of just afterwards of the US Army throwing them out of the helicopters. More recently, this was in Bihar in India, where we gave them some bags and put all the freight in them, and we're chucking them out to these people. And that's my favorite photograph of the lot. How a simple, low-tech device can actually help some people who need to rebuild their lives. And that's what I do. I like to keep these teams going with the support of Deutsche Post. And on that note, I'll thank you very much for your attention. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. That's very